has accused Karen Reed of striking her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her car after a night of drinking and leaving him in the snow to die. The defense is saying, as they said in their opening statement, that Karen Reed was framed and this is all a cover-up. This morning, the Commonwealth continued with scientific evidence. The first witness that they called was the head of the state trooper CERT team who came in and searched outside of 34 Fairview only in the early evening, late afternoon hours of January 29th. They were never called back out to search again. They found 7 pieces of taillight and a shoe. It seems that it was the victim's black Nike. It was found under the snow up against the curb line, upside down. The witness also testified that all of the taillight pieces that they recovered were under fresh snow and that they were uncovered as they were shoveling snow on that crime scene. And everything was found fairly close in proximity to the shoe on the curb line, which was between where the fire hydrant and the flagpole was. The cross-examination of that talked about really how close the items of evidence were together. Then we got into a witness who is still on direct examination from the Massachusetts Crime Lab. This is the witness who swabbed the victim's shirt to send it out for animal DNA testing, who processed the SUV for biological evidence, including a hair that tested to be human hair and then was cut in half. And the hair with the root was sent for DNA testing. The rest of the hair shaft was reserved at the crime lab for further testing if needed. And we're seeing all the photos from the victim's shirt for the first time. That the victim's sweatshirt that has darker gray sleeves and a lighter gray torso and then a hood shows very clear cuts from where ambulance personnel cut off the sweatshirt to treat him. But it also shows what appear to me to be puncture wounds on the right sleeve. And we saw quite a lot of close-ups of those. Very distinct and different than the cut marks from shears used on the ambulance. We have not gotten all the way through that evidence. We have not heard exactly where this witness swabbed the shirt for the animal DNA. We are getting into other swabs taken of red-brown stains. We will see if those come back for blood and whose after lunch. And then we will get into what I imagine will be an extended cross-examination of this crime lab witness. This is the witness who had failed one question on her biannual competency testing, and then that was remediation. But then she was taught the difference to see the hair shaft that had the root on it or not. And they went into a long explanation of that testing procedure and the competency testing and the remediation of her competency testing. And then she was retested for that. We're at the end of day 19. The witness, Valere from the state crime lab, who does trace and physical match evidence, is still on the stand, entering into evidence every single piece of glass and or taillight that they have at the crime lab. What's been really interesting to note is as we're finally getting into the later evidence numbers, and these are all 7 dash whatever through like 15, 16, as we're getting through the 7 dash series of evidence. On some of the evidence collection, we are getting the front of the evidence bag, and you can see that some of these pieces were collected February 8th, February 9th, February 10th by both Trooper Buchanan and Trooper Proctor. But we have these evidence being collected day after day after day after day, which is wild to see. But generally, by the time we get to the crime lab witnesses, which is what we've done today, we would have heard from the lead investigator. It is confusing to get to all of the crime lab witnesses without having the people who collected the evidence, how they collected it, where from they collected it, when they collected it, Remember, this witness is only doing the physical match, whether the pieces of presumed tail light, I'm sure somebody has tested it, fit together and whether those are part of the tail light. I don't know if they're going to do it with the cup. And then there is a giant round piece of plastic that is subject to a let's approach and an objection, and then we never got back to it. I don't know what the fuck that is. I guess we'll find out or not. Law nerds, we are laying foundation. The laying foundation part of evidence is very slogging. Hopefully, when we resume with this witness on Wednesday, we will get into what was matched and what wasn't matched, but we're going to go through a bunch more photos. I now want to see the cover of every single one of these evidence bags because those dates are wild to me and we don't have any answers for them yet. And it's lending more and more credibility to statements the defense made about Trooper Proctor at the very beginning of this case in their opening statements, that there are massive issues with this individual as a witness. And that is why we have not seen them yet. That's what I'm imagining, because it's bananas that you wouldn't go through the lead investigator early on in a case, or at least before all the crime scene. For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them on my YouTube channel at The